Good evening and welcome to the City of Pasco Council meeting. The council thanks you for being a part of our city government. At meetings, the city council takes formal actions on items, holds public hearings, and conducts other business of the city. Following the Healthy Washington Roadmap to Recovery Phase 3 requirements, the city council may conduct in-person meetings while continuing to provide remote access to the meetings until the Washington state restrictions are lifted. Therefore, facial masks are required to be worn at all times while in the council chambers. If any individual is unable to comply with this order, then the meeting will be recessed until compliance is met. If compliance is not met, then the individual refuses to leave the chambers, then the meeting will either reconvene only virtually or be adjourned. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. Please note that the City Council meetings may be accessed through GoToWebinar. This meeting is also being televised live on Pasco TV channel 191, on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, and YouTube channel. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. And lastly, the public may submit their comments and or questions by contacting the city manager or city clerk or using the feedback form on the city's website. So thank you for that, and we'd like to have a roll call, please.
Council members Alvarado,
Here.
Maloney,
Present.
Milne,
Present.
Roach,
Present.
Serrano,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Barajas,
Present.
and Mayor Martinez.
Present. Thank you. Everybody's here. May I, will you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next, we're going to go to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by roll call vote as one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If further discussion is desired by council members or the public, the item may be removed from the consent agenda to the regular agenda and considered separately. First on the consent agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes, to approve the minutes of the Pasco City Council meeting held on April 5th, 2021, and workshop held on April 12th, 2021. Second on the agenda items is bill of communications to approve claims in a total amount of $3,135,542.97. And next, to approve bad debt write-off for utility billing, ambulance, cemetery, general accounts, miscellaneous accounts, and municipal court accounts receivable in a total amount of $153,086.05, and of that amount, authorize zero to be turned over for collections. Item C is ordinances, PMC amendment, critical areas, ordinance and development regulations. And that's to adopt ordinance number 4525, amending Title 28 of the Pasco Municipal Code, critical areas, consistent with the periodic review and update under the Washington State Growth Management Act, and further authorize publication by summary only. And to adopt ordinance number 4526, amending PMC 12.36.040 exceptions, amending PMC 25.15.030 definitions, creating PMC 25.165.205 electric vehicle battery charging stations, creating PMC 25.197 mineral lands, and amending PMC 25.215.020 comprehensive plan amendment, adopting development regulations consistent with a periodic review and update under the Washington State Growth Management Act, and further authorize publication by summary only. Next would be the resolution agreement with HDR for construction management services for the wastewater treatment plant improvements phase 1 project. And that's to approve resolution number 4049, authorizing execution of the professional services agreement by the city manager with HDR Engineering, Inc. for the wastewater treatment plant improvements phase 1 project. So that's the items on the agenda item. If there is no further discussion or no further questions, then I would entertain a motion by Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve the consent agenda as read. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Serrano. All those, we'll have a roll call, please.
Okay, great. Councilmember Serrano,
Yes.
Alvarado,
Yes.
Maloney,
Yes.
Milne,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barajas,
Yes.
and Mayor Martinez.
Yes, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to proclamations and acknowledgements, none listed. And then item 6 is visitors other than agenda items. This item is provided to allow citizens the opportunity to bring items to the attention of the city council or to express an opinion on an issue. Its purpose is not to provide a menu for debate or for the posing of questions with the expectation of an immediate response. Some questions require consideration by council over time and after a deliberative process with input from a number of different sources. Some questions are best directed to staff members who have access to specific information. Citizen comments will normally be limited to 3 minutes each by the mayor. Those with lengthy messages are invited to summarize their comments and or submit written information for consideration by the council outside of formal meetings. So with that, we do have one person that would like to acknowledge and say something tonight. Mr. Baumann.
Good evening, everybody. It's really good to see you back in person again. I'm excited that we're back in person. Really disappointed in something that I heard you say, Mayor, right at the beginning, is you would allow this meeting to be disrupted by one person that chose to not. You would have preferred that I had the mask on while I spoke.
Yeah, we have to.
So I'm happy to do that. I don't think that it's a necessary thing, but I think that one person disrupting a meeting and sending everybody home is very inappropriate. And I hope that if that were to happen again, that they would be asked to leave the room. So thankful to see everybody here, and hopefully we can get some return to normalcy.
Thank you, Mr. Baumann, and I appreciate you coming forward and saying that and being cooperative and wanting to. We as well would like to maintain our in-person meetings so that we have the opportunity for our public to come in and share what they want to share, as long as we can maintain. I have my own opinions, but it doesn't matter. We need to abide by what the safety protocols are for us to follow. So thank you very much for that. All right, so next we have, I'm going to open it up to Mr. Adam Lincoln. I believe we have somebody that would like to say some words tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening we've got our guest is Paul Hoover. He's our lobbyist in DC for Gordon Thomas Honeywell. And just wanted to give you all an update on some of the information that we're receiving and that no doubt all of you are receiving regarding some of the federal funds that are going to become available to municipalities. He's got a few slides that he's going to share with us and kind of summarize some of those opportunities. There's a pretty short timeline on spending some of those funds and getting in applications, and it's certainly been kind of a whirlwind to learn about all of those. So if Paul is on the line and available, I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Hoover, are you on the line tonight?
Hi, Council, Mayor, can you hear me?
We can just hear you. I don't know if maybe you can get closer to your mic, or if maybe John can turn it up. Want to go ahead and say something again?
Check, check. Can you hear me? Paul Hoover.
Can
Me
everybody
try
hear
and-
me okay? Okay, we can hear you okay. Thank you, Mr. Hoover.
Okay? Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Adam. I guess we'll start with the overview of my slides. If someone can pull it up there, that would be great. You just let me know when it's on the screen.
Yep, it is on.
Okay, great. So I'm going to give sort of an overview of appropriations process right now, infrastructure spending. I want to applaud the council and the mayor and your team, the various departments, for preparing yourselves. We've been giving regular updates to our delegation, the senators, various committees on the Hill, so that they know what our priorities are, which is good because this came pretty quickly this year. It's a very new process on the appropriations on the federal side. Well, new as of 10 years. So I'm going to run through House and Senate and give time for questions. I just want to kind of get us all on the same page since this has come fast and furious, and we've had a lot of deadlines that we've met. If I can get the next slide, that'd be great.
Okay, we're on.
So first and foremost, community funding requests. That is the new fancy name for earmarks, if you will. Fortunately, I was there 10 years ago when we were putting these in. A lot of the staffers were not. Some of the members, many of the members, Washington State delegation, were not either. So there's a bit of a learning curve. As I said earlier, it's good that we are well prepared for this with our priorities, with our various projects. On the House side, essentially what we have is each member in the House only has about 10 projects. And there's a cap not just on projects, but spending limit. So the scope and breadth of these is pretty limited. Partly that's because the first year they've been back in so long. So they're kind of taking it as they come. To give you sort of a frame of reference, there are 12 appropriation bills, everything from energy and water funding, housing and transportation. They only get to offer 10 projects. They don't even get one per appropriations bill. So we've submitted our projects to Congressman Newhouse. We will then, Senator Murray has a deadline of May 14th. We will submit sort of our top line projects to them. Again, these are kind of 2 to 3 million range. The scope, the ideal project is completed in 2022, or at least the funds obligated thereafter. We're working with the Committee on Guidance regularly. We expect Senator Cantwell to come out with her guidance and her process as well in the coming weeks. After the House passes all 12 appropriations bills, hopefully with some of our projects in it, the Senate will go through their process. And then the sort of third step is the big conference to make sure those projects stay in the final bill and eventually go up to the president and are signed into law. So we have just begun, and we've got ways to go, and we will keep you updated as it comes. We'll go to the next slide now. So that is, broadly speaking, the general appropriations bills and getting individual projects on each of those in each area. As I mentioned in the past, and when I say the past, this is 2009, 2010, you had a lot of different accounts under each bill. They've decided to severely limit those to largely transportation and housing areas, and interior, it's just like land acquisition. The other process that's going on at the same time is the 5-year service transportation reauthorization. So this was last passed in 2015. We are actually overdue for a full 5-year authorization. The Transportation Infrastructure Committee is basically saying we can pick specific projects, again, limited in size and scope, and advocate for them to be included in this 5-year service transportation bill. On the Senate side, there's about 3 different committees that have jurisdiction over this process. Senator Cantwell, fortunately, Commerce Committee has jurisdiction. We will be communicating and advocating our projects to her as well. And they'll do kind of a similar thing. The House will pass this first, we expect, and then the Senate will pass their version, and then we will combine those and pass them together. So again, we've already reached some dates and milestones and getting our projects into the House side, but there's a long way to go on both of these. And I'll take the next slide. So the last thing I want to talk about is the president on March 31st introduced this infrastructure plan. It is $2.25 trillion, so you can imagine there's a lot in it. The spending actually exists over 8 years. The tax side and the pay for is 15 years. And broadly speaking, that's increase on corporate taxes and overseas profits. So corporations or companies that park profits overseas, essentially bringing those back. I do want to say that this is just a proposal, and I'll speak a little bit to how we think that process may get laid out. This is very much just the administration's outline of how they want to spend the money and how they actually then want to pay for it. Environmental justice, climate change, There's a lot of focus on electrification infrastructure, improving the grid, smart grid technology, different renewable energy sources have a big priority in this. I think we can think of it in like 3 baskets. The first one is fix what's broken, roads and bridges, repavements. Number 2 is kind of improve infrastructure for the new economy, which includes new energy proposals, more efficient infrastructure like broadband that connects different communities and different economies of scale. And the third one's sort of yet to be proposed, and that's sort of the health and childcare and education piece. There's some increase in Medicare and Medicaid. There's also some other sort of expanding healthcare access, childcare options, either tax credits or additional childcare refund payments. And then the last one is universal pre-K and free access to community college for those who want it. Again, this is just a proposal by the administration. Right now, there, of course, is a lot of discussion about the pay-fors, discussion, disagreement. Senator Murray and Senator Cantwell are very involved in these process, as are their counterparts. They are chairs of some committees. Their ranking members are working on some of these proposals. So there's a lot to go through. We expect this section, called the third tranche of infrastructure and spending, to take quite a few months to get through, which is good because we can sort of influence that process and tailor it to our needs. But this week, we expect the Senate to actually introduce what may be the first piece of this, which is a water infrastructure bill. It's about $30 billion. It largely focuses on lead pipes. And that's what we might see. We might see the Senate and House take pieces of this proposal and try and pass them, bit by bit, probably the most popular ones first. If that doesn't work, they may do something like we saw in the American Rescue Plan that passed through budget reconciliation, which would probably be a close to party line vote, and they could sort of move through a large package all at once. Again, early days, and we're tracking this process and hope to influence it for the better to provide some infrastructure and funding back to the city. And I think we're on the next slide, please. Thank you. So besides all those processes I laid out, we still have to get through various grant notifications. It's a new administration. We're meeting with the Department of Transportation, Health and Human Services, Commerce Department on broadband issues. Please, if the council has any suggestions or pressing issues, work through various departments, let us know. Even just the funding that will come to the city from the American Rescue Plan, we are going to need to see Treasury guidance on that, just how to spend it. For example, you can spend some of that funding on water, wastewater, and broadband under infrastructure, but what that actually means, does water include Army Corps projects or pump stations? We need to hear from Treasury exactly how that works out. I have provided and working with the departments and city manager various NOFOs, notice of funding opportunities and grant programs. So, we expect more of that to occur throughout the year, and we will also be equally well prepared to work through those process. And then I would just open up and have any questions. I know that was a lot and a broad overview, but I kind of wanted to get everyone up to speed on what we're working on and sort of go over how this new process is working.
Well, I can sure appreciate it, Mr. Hoover. Yeah, that's a new term, NOFOs. That's a new one. Anybody from council? Councilmember Serrano.
I do. Hey, Paul, Pete Serrano. Thanks for that presentation. I have maybe a bit of an off-the-wall preemptive question here for you. We know that Congressman Mike Simpson out of Idaho is pressing hard on Snake River dams. Is there any chance that he may use these community funding requests to kind of if he sees his bill is dead in the water, kind of backdoor his way into funding some of those? And if so, what can we do to strike preemptively? If you're hearing any discussion on that, or, I mean, again, maybe way off the wall, but if he intends to use this money somehow for his communities we want to be aware of that, I guess.
Sure. No, it's a great question. Yeah, no, very aware of what's going on with Mike Simpson. It is his scope of that project is largely far outside what could be used on community funding, because these community funded requests are, they're 2 or 3 million. They're very specific. You would need to chip away quite a bit to get to what he's proposing. He is working on introducing sort of a standalone draft bill. I think largely the delegation is going to kind of put that back to stakeholders. I'm happy to talk more about that later, but I would say no on the community project funding request, but we will see as this moves forward. I will happy to keep you apprised of how that moves.
Great, I appreciate that. I figured it would be too small of a piece, but you never know who's going to do what with these new opportunities. So I appreciate that, and we also appreciate you keeping us posted of any movement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Maloney.
And thank you, Mr. Hoover, for that presentation. So my question, I guess, is this is new to us because, as you said, the opportunities to specifically ask for federal funding has not been available to us, I think, on just about any of our time here on City Council with outside perhaps the mayor. So I guess my question is, we have a number of things we talk about during our strategy sessions and prioritization that are things that are outside of our typical ability to get funded, and therefore simply get deprioritized simply because there's no good way for us as a city to necessarily move the ball forward on that. So for certain items that are typically outside of what we can do, is this a potential opportunity now and into the future as to a mechanism to get some of those things done? Should we be thinking outside the box in that fashion? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, first I'll say that we were waiting quite a long time for our members and Congressman Newhouse to release the process. And that was partly because the Appropriations Committee hadn't released any guidance. So they were really asking for this round were things that were very queued up. I mean, they're talking about, can you cut a ribbon in 2022 or 2023? And then I guess the second part of your question, yeah, I would say preemptively we should be thinking outside the box. How they've lined it up now, and again, the Senate process hasn't given us guidance, but for example, the interior bill, there are dozens of accounts that you used to be able to pick and choose and fund accordingly through this process. How it used to be. This time they limit that to 3 accounts. It's like state forestry, it's land acquisition, and then kind of like the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So they've done that on about every one. There's 12 bills and hundreds. They basically limit it down to about 20 different accounts. So hopefully that answers your question about thinking outside the box, because I would say, yes, we should be just in general, because there are opportunities and it's very opaque. So I want us to be as prepared as possible. Ideas are welcome, but right now from the House, it's been a very, very narrow keyhole to slot through, and hopefully that changes.
So I think my takeaway from that is that perhaps given the short timelines and the very narrow bands of the project, we might be down the path in the right direction right now. But perhaps we should be thinking for future opportunities, if we have them, to do what's right for our community and see if we can get some stuff funded. The last thing I'd offer is through various community meetings and such, we know the senators and representatives staff, and so I think any of us would be happy to reach out if there's a value in us participating more directly with any of the conversations. I'm sure that any of us can. We're easy to be queued up to help drive our priorities forward. So if there's some opportunity to us, please do let us know. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney. Anyone else?
This is Councilmember Alvarado.
Yes, Councilmember Alvarado, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Hoover, for this update. I guess my question is perhaps to staff, but before saying that, I would say that I got a call from Gloria Boyce over at Ben Franklin Transit, and they wanted to express their gratitude to the city of Pasco for being able to endorse the request for this appropriation. I know that they, they're wanting to have some projects here in East and West Pasco, and so that really they just want to express the gratitude to the city for their endorsement. And I guess they were pretty quick to identify what projects they had, they would request, and I'm not sure how that came about. But I'm just curious if perhaps some city staff or Mr. Hoover, if we have perhaps some projects that we have identified as potential, or that it may be premature to do that. Just question curiosity.
Yeah.
Councilmember,
Adam, do you want?
Yeah, I can jump in there, Paul. So the projects that we've been looking at are pretty exclusively from your legislative agenda, trying to kind of take advantage of the momentum that seems to be happening during the legislative session, as well as identifying projects that have been a clear priority for the council. So the MLK Community Center has been on the list. Looking at projects around the Broadmoor area, especially as there's more of a path towards development out in that area, both for city and private side. The pedestrian bike lane overpass on Sylvester has been on the list. Looking at opportunity to do the overlay at SR 395, and then also making safety improvements at SR 12 has all been on the list. So trying to keep it fairly concise and a list of things that we are hopeful that we can actually make some noticeable progress with if we are fortunate enough to get those dollars. I will add that the SR 12 stuff is a little more of a challenge, probably just given the planning steps that are still involved there. But we've worked really closely with WashDOT on these and have letters of support for some of these key projects as well. So we'll keep carrying water on those projects.
And council member, you raise a good point. I just want to say we represent Ben Franklin Transit and work with Gloria. So I'm glad their projects were queued up well. We helped them do that. And part of this process is, because it's been so specific and it's so quickly supporting, regional projects or transit projects that are also priorities, also helps the city as well. So, it's that's a little bit part of this dance and transition is finding the best projects out there, even if they might be broader in scope or transit related for the city.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. If I may, I'm wondering if there's, and I know at the state level we kind of were strategic and kind of how the political landscape looked. I'm wondering if that would be also the case at the federal level, where there might be some project that would be more likely to get funded or things like that. I don't know if there's perhaps that conversation has happened or if that's been peeled back and revealed, but just curious if that's the case.
Yeah, it's always the case with these processes. They're trying to be as neutral as possible since this is sort of the first year back. I would say what they're emphasizing more than anything is broad community support. They've left it a little bit up to the members to choose. So some of those have been, as WashDOT indicated, it's their project is ready. But community and regional support and, economic, as well as, as various groups that can support a certain project or are impacted by it sort of raises it to another level, which is what we've been focusing on as much as possible.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you, Councilmember Alvarado. And I can't see Zara, so I'm going to just give an opportunity to make sure everybody has asked the questions. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you thinking about me, even though you can't see me. I am here, and I appreciate the presentation for Mr. Hoover.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Roach. And I'd just like to say, Paul, that it's really, really great to see how our city manager, initially with the council and the staff and your group, Paul, how we're working together. I've never seen so much communication. I feel like we're really getting our bang for the buck, and appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing in our behalf, wherever your group is at. And I just want to appreciate staff, council, and your company, Gordon Thomas Honeywell, for the great efforts that they're doing for our communities and helping us out to have a lot of projects come to fruition and financially letting us get to where we're gonna be. And it's just an amazing feat for the city of Pasco. So thank you very much, Paul, and thank you for your time. I know it's late over there. Again, thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much. Love to come back anytime. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right. So, is there anybody else for this section of the meeting? If not, then we're going to move right along to item number 8, and it's hearings and council actions on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto. And tonight we have a hearing. We have the ordinance for J.J. Kelly Construction Annexation Update, and I would like to start with Director Rick White. Are you on the line tonight?
I am, Mr. Mayor, and I'm assuming council can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. This issue concerns an annexation of approximately 17 acres of unincorporated land, bullseye in the middle of the current City of Pasco urban growth area at Road 52 in Warnett. I'm not sure this council has processed a petition method of annexation before, but this annexation is accomplished through that petition method of annexation for code cities, and all the state legislation for process and regulations regarding the proposal have been followed. Again, as noted in last week's council workshop, the proposed annexation is intended to become a residential subdivision served by municipal water and sewer. And the next item on the agenda concerns the proposed zoning for the area as recommended by the hearing examiner. But this particular issue does require council to consider the proposed annexation at a public hearing, and I believe there is one gentleman signed up for testimony in that regard.
Yes, sir. All right, thank you, Director White. And before I open the hearing, does council have any questions of staff before I open up this public hearing? Yes, Councilmember Serrano.
Thanks. Mr. White, I do have one quick question. When I look at the application, it encompassed a greater area than one that we're rezoning if we move forward with the annexation, and two, an even greater area than this annexation request, or than the annexation as proposed by the city. Is that due to the various owners of these other parcels, or can you speak to why we're granting an annexation smaller than the original request?
Well, the original annexation request was put forward by Mr. Jeff Kelly and involved a smaller area than what the 17 acres proposed annexation now entails. Mr. Kelly's original request was for approximately 13 acres, if I'm not mistaken. There were some additional properties added to the proposal based on the city's receipt of outside utility agreements for future water service, for water service from past owners. So the area was enlarged from Mr. Kelly's original proposal. Am I understanding your question, Mr. Serrano?
Maybe I'm misunderstanding the packet, but on this item, when I scroll down electronically to page 7, there's a petition for an annexation that's about 5 pages. When I look at the map noted as Exhibit 2, it encompasses 5 parcels, inclusive of the 13.07 acres, comprehensively 17.15 acres. So it runs almost all the way west to, what is that, Road 52? Or 56, my apologies. It encompasses all the way from 56 to 52. And it encompasses the one southwestern property owned by Mr. Sorry, I apologize. It's trying to pull up the county mapping. Mr. Benson, it appears. I'm just curious why that entire map of those 5 parcels is not included in this. Because it appears to be the original petition, unless I'm looking at a bad exhibit.
Oh, okay, now I understand. The staff originally rounded up the boundaries, thinking that we may be successful in getting other property owners to sign on to the intent to or the petition to annex. That did not occur. So what you're seeing now is the minimum that is needed for the regulations concerning the petition method of annexation, which is greater than 60% of either interest or coverage through some other document.
Okay, that answers everything. I'm now following the entire agenda item, why that 60% is relevant and how it comes in. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Councilmember Serrano. And before I open up the hearing, I also just want to remind council that if there's any reason for disclosures, now is the time. So I just give a quick second of opportunity. And so if hearing none, then I'm going to go ahead and open up this hearing. The public hearing is open for comments, and we do have one that has signed up to speak on this topic. And do we have Joe Rowe on the line?
Mr. Mayor, we're working with him to get him access to speak
Okay,
right now.
all right. We'll wait a couple of seconds. And while they're doing that, I guess I would just, is there anybody from the audience here today that would like to speak on this issue? Nope, okay, then we'll just give it a couple seconds to try to get Mr. Rowe on the line.
Mr. Rowe, could you try speaking? It says you're unmuted. I don't think we're getting him through here. It says it's not working.
It's not working?
Yep.
Well, in this case, I would ask for legal counsel on some advice. If we could, somebody had signed up to make a comment on this topic and this issue and not available virtually, is there some direction that we can take before we close the meeting and move forward?
Is there any way for that individual who's wishing to comment for them to utilize the call-in feature? Is that what they're trying to do now?
Yeah, I believe they were calling in. They have to enter in a PIN number. Mr. Briggs was unable to do that. I switched them over to panelist, and according to our area, it shows that this gentleman is unmuted and at least from a computer's perspective available to speak, but he is unable to get through to us.
Okay, is the individual, is he trying to access the meeting through his computer, or is he calling in on his cell phone? Is what I'm asking, I guess.
I believe he is calling in from his cell phone.
Okay. I mean, the other option would be for him to try to access, if he has access to a computer, if he's able to access it that way. Short of that, let me see if I can pull up the actual agenda for today.
Mr. Briggs, we're going to have him try to call a phone number here in the council chambers so he'd be able to speak.
That would work as well, too.
Yep. See, do we have his number?
Perhaps if we have this person's number and having them put them on the speaker like we did, I think it was an executive session some time ago.
Yep.
I'm not sure if we'd be able to get through that way.
Yep, we're waiting for his phone call right now, Councilmember Alvarado. Thank you.
Joe Rowe.
Hey, Joe, I'm putting you on speakerphone here.
Thank you very much.
All right, there we go.
Mr. Rowe, thank you very much for calling in tonight. May I ask you to give me your full name and address for the record, please?
Name and address, is that what you asked for?
Yes, sir.
Joe Wesley Rowe, 2113 North Road 52 here in Pasco.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead with your comment.
I live right adjacent to this property, and I understand that annexation is going to occur in time. Personally, not in favor of that. I don't particularly care for that, but between the annexation and the rezoning, I'm against this process. One, I'm directly east of it. I'm right into the wind direction of the whole construction process. 1 year ago, this was put in to be done on Franklin County on much larger lots. And now we're going down to an R1, which, if I understand, is 7,000 square foot lot. Way too many houses in too small of an area for this area. We live on a larger lotted area with, people having several acres here and there. And putting that many houses into the middle of that kind of a concept, I'm completely against that because it goes against everything in the quality of life that we live out here. And secondly, the amount of traffic that is going to bring in an area that is already uncontrolled is also not a good idea, but it's also just dangerous. And this is not a well thought out plan. We're getting the cart in front of the horse here.
Okay. All right, Mr. Rowe, your comments have been received and taken into consideration.
One other thing is that there are several of the neighbors here that unfortunately didn't realize they had to be logged in by 4 o'clock to be able to comment. They are listening and watching on the webcam and stuff, and they are not in favor of this process either, and I just want to speak on their behalf.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it and apologize for the inconvenience, but obviously it's part of the program right now with where we're at. But thank you very much, Mr. Rowe, for your comments.
I appreciate you guys working with me and giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you for that. Next, I'll go with a second call for comments related to the public hearing. And a third call and final call for the public comments regarding this topic. Okay, then I'm gonna close the public hearing. Now I will ask for a motion from council. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, would this be appropriate to ask further questions of staff at this time, or?
Well, we're gonna get a motion and then.
Thank you.
And then we can go, I was gonna go with that.
Motion, I move to adopt ordinance number 4527, annexing certain real property of the city of Pasco and further authorize publication by summary only.
Okay, so there's a motion to adopt ordinance number 4527, annexing certain real property to the city of Pasco and further authorize publication by summary only. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
And they're seconded by Mr. Serrano. And at this time, I will go ahead and open it up for comments by the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Mr. White. The question I have for here is, even though we're talking about an annexation and we're talking about a zoning as a following item on the agenda, when we're talking about platting, traffic impacts, things like the visual appeal of any properties, that sort of thing, that's yet to come, and there's another opportunity for members of the public to weigh in on any concerns regarding the actual project itself. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, Councilman Maloney. We have not yet received a application for the preliminary plat. We've seen several iterations of concepts, but that's as far as it's gone.
So in front of us is simply a petition from a majority of owners of land or who have controlling interest in the properties to they're asking for themselves to be added to the city, and that's all we're considering tonight. Is that correct?
In this item, that's correct. In the following item, of course, there's the zoning determination, yes.
Excellent. That's the only questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney. Anyone else? Okay, so there's been a motion, and it's been seconded by Councilmember Serrano. So all those in favor of this ordinance number 4527, signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. All right, thank you, council. And next we'll move on to number 9 on the agenda, ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. And we have an ordinance from J.J. Kelly, construction zoning determination. Mr. White, do you want to just give another brief discussion on this one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, very briefly, the hearing examiner did conduct a public hearing on the proposed zoning for the area on March 10th. And based on the proposed zoning's conformance with the comprehensive plan, which indicates a density range of between 2 and 5 units per acre, the examiner has forwarded a recommendation of approval to City Council. And again, as Mr. Maloney noted in the last agenda item, that preliminary plat application has yet to come before the hearing examiner. And when it does, the appropriate notice, of course, will be provided for property owners and the public in this area.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council? And I would also open up if any members of the audience would like to comment on this topic. If not, then I would entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4528, assigning R1 zoning to the J and J Kelly Construction Annexation area as recommended by the hearing examiner, and further authorize publication by summary only.
So there's been a motion to adopt ordinance number 4528. Do I hear a second?
Councilmember Maloney, I'll second that.
Okay, Councilmember Maloney has a second. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
Nay.
Okay, we have one nay by Councilmember Milne, and it passes with a 6-1 vote. So thank you for that. Next, we'll go on to item B. Carryover funds for capital projects from 2019-2020 Biennium. Director Sigdell, are you on the line tonight?
Yes, Mayor, can you hear me?
You know, if you could just, I don't know if it's, if we can turn it up by John Funfar or if you get closer to the mic. I'm not sure which one would work best.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Great. Evening, Mayor and Council. This action item in front of you today is something that we discussed almost exactly a month ago. As a reminder, this is budget authorizations in the form of an ordinance for carryover for all of our capital projects that were not able to be accomplished for one reason or another. And that accounts to about $57 million. And it encompasses all different types of projects, like what we would call a general project in form of animal shelters, or our parks and recreation and transportation and utilities related projects as well. While you read the ordinance, it might look a little bit different than the $57 million that I referred to. And so I would like to explain that just a little bit, and also give council a refresher on what is many times very confusing thing about local government accounting. We are required to account for each of our different funds as separate entities. So you essentially sit and preside over all of the entities and give us authorization. However, even transfer between those funds have to be accounted separately. So you will sometimes see what would essentially be one expense show up in a couple of different places and add up to a lot more dollar amount than what you were anticipating. So I hope I have not muddied the waters even more. And with that, I'm here for any questions.
All right, thank you, Director Sigdell. Any questions from staff or the council? Or anybody from the audience that would have a comment on this topic?
This is Councilmember Alvarado.
Yes, Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you, Ms. Richa. And I guess I have a related question. I guess it's more from a perspective of transparency or being able to understand. The more I look into this, I feel like I understand 1% more. Finance is certainly not my best topic here or of expertise, but I know that the last comprehensive annual financial report we have available is 2018, and I believe that's probably because of the Biennium. And so, will there be kind of in the upcoming, I guess, Biennium CAFR a kind of explanation of this, and perhaps something that's a little bit accessible to the readers to be able to understand how these numbers perhaps can look perhaps a little more inflated or things of that nature, just for the sake of understanding. I know when the public looks at these documents, the average folk can feel a little bit more like, well, what am I looking at? And so if we're doing carryovers, how can we make that a little bit more easier to understand?
Absolutely. Actually, implementation of the carryovers would make that confusion go down. So essentially, in the past, we have tried to estimate our project cost. And so just taking this example, this $57 million would have shown up in your 2019-2020 biennial budget. But then we would have also tried to estimate what we wouldn't have spent and tried to include that in the 2021-2022 biennial budget as well. Because that is how we have historically accounted for capital project budget. The reason that we wanted to introduce the carryover is to make it more transparent so that you're understanding that the $57 million is actually true carryover, so that we're not making some sort of estimate, including it all in one biennial budget with a lot of other parts that are involved in building a budget, and giving you a much clearer picture of what were things that were authorized before that weren't completed, and having this as a separate chunk rather than mixed in with the big biennial budget preparation process. Unfortunately, with our annual financial reports, because there's a lot of government accounting standards that involve things like pension liabilities and depreciation, that becomes, it's not quite the right venue for making this simpler and adding more transparency. However, we are starting to look, as we have a little bit more staffing in the finance department and a little bit more expertise in the next year or so, we're looking to prepare something that is called a PAFR, and that is a more simplified version of our financial reports. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Alvarado?
Yeah, looking forward to that, and appreciate taking the time to explain that.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Alvarado. And not hearing anything else from the audience or anyone that's written in or called in, would like to entertain a motion, please.
Absolutely, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4529, amending the 2021 to 2022 biannual budget, ordinance number 4503 of the City of Pasco, Washington, by providing supplement thereto to provide for additional appropriation for the carryover of the prior year budget to complete capital projects and further authorize publication by summary only.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Barajas. So there's been a motion to move to adopt ordinance number 4529. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it. Alvarado, I'll second.
Well, it's seconded by Councilmember Milne. So all those in favor to adopt ordinance number 4529 signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on the agenda is an amendment to Benton Franklin Health District Community Services contract for COVID-19 testing. Chief Bob Gear, are you on the line tonight?
Actually, I am, Mayor, but I'd like to ask Craig Briggs to kind of explain why we have a couple resolutions here back to back, and how we're playing a little bit of catch up, and then I can answer any questions specifically related to implementing vaccines with the health district.
All right, thank you, Chief Gear. Mr. Briggs, are you available?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, can you see me okay now?
There you go. Now we can see
So
you.
yeah, we've got two resolutions before council this evening, separate motions for each. We had parsed these out into two separate documents. I think just given the way things work typically with council, Amendment 1 would have came first, obviously, prior to Amendment 2. So we separated these out into two separate documents. As council will see, amendment number 1 was a prior document that was changing or extending the term of the testing facility agreement through March 31st of this year. Obviously, that time period has expired, so tonight's council action would be with regard to ratification of that action. The second amendment is to, again, shift the scope of the work that's being done at this site to include vaccination capabilities, together with our testing capabilities, which we currently have ready. I think probably, and I think Chief Gear would be able to explain this a little bit better, but I think we're going to start to probably see a shift towards an increased frequency in vaccinations and a decreased frequency in the rate of testing that's going on. So we want to be sure that that testing facility is able to actually provide those vaccinations as well. And this also tends to serve a gap filler of sorts, considering that there's going to be some coverage on weekends, specifically the day where the Benton County or Benton Franklin County site at the fairgrounds is actually closed on Sundays. So this will provide some opportunities for individuals who to get vaccinated who maybe scheduling wise we're having difficulty getting to the fairground site here in Kennewick. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have about the substance of those agreements, if council has any questions.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Briggs. Does the council have any comments or questions of staff? Okay, and again, I'm just gonna verify that there's nobody in the audience or on the call that would like to comment on this topic. And if not, there's two motions. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to make the first one?
First motion, I move to approve resolution number 4050, ratifying the amendment number 1 to the community service contract with Benton Franklin Health District's community service contract for COVID-19 testing site.
Okay, so there's been a motion to approve resolution number 4050. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Councilmember Serrano. All those in favor of approving resolution number 4050 signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. And now the second motion.
Second motion, I move to approve resolution number 4051, approving the amendment for number 2 to the community service contract with Benton Franklin Health District for COVID-19 testing site, and further authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. There's been a motion to approve resolution number 4051. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that. This is Councilmember Roach.
Seconded by Councilmember Roach. So all those in favor of approving resolution number 4051 signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Again, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Gear and Mr. Briggs. Next, we have a purchase and sale agreement amendment number 7 with PACE, PACE for Columbia East Lift Station and Force Main Project. Director Worley, are you on the line tonight?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, members of council. Before I begin, I wanted to make one slight correction. The PSA reference in the title is actually for Professional Services Agreement. So we apologize for that. It's very often confused with a purchase and sale agreement. So we'll be more clear on that next time. We have lots of items for you tonight that are related to specific projects. And so we've got our project expert, CIP manager, Maria Serra, and she's going to cover this item for us. Maria?
Good evening, council, mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening. So we are presenting to you amendment number 7 to professional services agreements with Pace Engineering for the Columbia East Pump Station and Force Main. You've heard a lot about this project. So this is the 7th amendment to this contract. The contract was originally signed for design services for the pump station and the Force Main. This project is not the typical project. It was one project, got split into 2 projects, and then based on funding and right-of-way complications, we had to issue amendments in order to keep the project developing and adjusting to their needs. With recent acquisition of additional funding from Economic Development Administration, we were able to go back to a dual force main project, which is what was originally intended. And we were able to complete the design, and this specific amendment is for both finishing the design, which has occurred, and also working through bid process and now towards construction support by the design engineer, the engineer of record. I am happy to answer questions on this.
All right, well, thank you very much. Do I hear any, I'll open it up for any council questions, if anybody has any questions of staff or, okay. And once again, I'd like to open it up for any member of the audience that would like to comment on this issue. All right, if not, then I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to resolution number 4052, authorizing the city manager to sign and execute a 7th amendment for the professional services agreement with Pace PACE Engineers Incorporated for the Columbia East Lift Station and Force Main project.
All right, thank you. So there's a motion to approve resolution number 4052. Do I hear a second?
Councilman Melny, I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Milne. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, passes unanimously. And again, I apologize for that acronym. I was using it earlier today and kind of got mixed up, but yes, the professional services agreement. So thank you very much for that correction, Mr. Worley. And next, we'll move on to the next resolution and ordinance for a processed water reuse facility. Mr. Worley, you want to go ahead and give us an update on that one?
You bet. And again, because this is related to a specific project, I am going to turn this one also over to Maria as well.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes, good evening again. What we are presenting in this item is a change order. It's change order number 4 for our embankment repair project at PWRF. As you may remember, we entered an agreement with Apollo Construction to repair failure of an embankment between 2 ponds at our industrial facility, the reuse facility as we typically call it, based on the requirements that ecology has imposed on us. We had to issue previous change orders to this project in order to gain approval. I think it's fair to mention that this was under a very tight timeline and kind of an emergency project. So we couldn't really wait until we had approval from ecology to move forward with some of the construction so that we could meet our operational deadlines. Based on that, and now the project is almost complete, we have performed testing on the liners that are required by the college to be installed in the ponds. And one of those two ponds, the ones that had liner on the bottom and didn't need to be removed for the reconstruction, we now have found that has enough wear and tear that cannot be repaired. So this change order is to replace that liner so that we can retest the liner, gain compliance, and be able to put the pond into operation. This change order is beyond the authority for the city manager to approve. Therefore, we're bringing it to you for consideration.
All right, well, thank you. So this is this is ours to approve the resolution and then adopt an ordinance, correct? So there's two motions?
That is correct.
Okay,
There is a resolution for approving the change order and an ordinance to approve the amendment to the budget so that the project can be included in the operations budget.
okay. So does council have any further comments or questions of staff? Councilmember Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Sarah, for the presentation. This is going to be more comments than it is questions. This is one of those items that comes before us, and it's always, it's kind of like the worst case scenario, right? We had a plan, project that created a failure in the infrastructure, and then that failure begot more changes and more costs and more changes and more costs. So now we're up to $800,000 that was caused by a planned upgrade. So this additional $140,000 is, this is problematic. So I'd really appreciate when we're finally finished and feel like this is in a good shape to get a bit of a report as to what went wrong. I mean, this is almost $1 million of taxpayer money that we would have liked to go to something else, and undoubtedly. And I understand that part of this is being paid out of the utility fund for those businesses that are receiving the processed water reuse facility services and the infrastructure. But nonetheless, we want to be very careful and conscientious of their money, especially given how much we've put on their shoulders recently to do upgrades and repairs, longstanding, very necessary changes. But so anyways, I would ask that staff gives us a bit of a report in the future, kind of breaking down where did things go wrong a little bit, because I am, again, this is about $1 million of taxpayer money that, from the looks of it, of what happened, it seems like it didn't need to have been spent. So I guess that's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney. Any other questions or comments from council? If not, then I would entertain a motion.
This is Councilmember Roach, and I just want to say I echo Councilmember Maloney's sentiments. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Roach.
Okay, so we have motion, the first motion. I move to approve resolution number 4053, authorizing the city manager to sign and execute a fourth change order to the construction contract with Apollo Inc. for the processed water reuse facility embankment repair project.
So there's a motion to approve resolution number 4053. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Serrano. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next motion.
Next motion, I move to adopt ordinance number 4530, amending the 2021-2022 biannual operating budget, ordinance number 4503 of the City of Pasco, Washington, by providing supplement thereto, to provide additional appropriation in the city's utility fund for the processed water reuse facility embankment repair, and further authorized publication by summary only.
Okay, so there's a motion to adopt ordinance number 4530. Do I hear a second?
Councilman Milne, I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Milne. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. All right, we're moving right along to item F, resolution processed water reuse facility irrigation pump station project change order number 6 and ratification of previous change orders. Director Worley, want to go ahead and update us on this one?
Good evening, Mr. Mayors and council members once again. This one is another project that you have heard quite a bit about. It is the replacement of the irrigation pump station out at the reuse facility. And this was a much needed replacement in order to get the whole pump station operating more efficiently and with much more operating power to be able to get the flows out to the farm fields. What the motion tonight is composed of two parts. The first part is looking at change order number 6, which is one of the last change orders that is being proposed. The pump station is operational. We are using it. We have identified some items within the pump station that we would like to see change to make the operation more efficient. So that's what this change order is about. The second part of this change order is about ratifying the previous change orders, and this is an error on my part. As the change orders came through to go to the city manager for approval, I failed to check each of the change orders or the accumulation of all the change orders to stay within the city manager's authority. And as you can see by the listing of change orders in the agenda report, the city manager's authority had it under change order number 1, and I should have caught the idea that with change order number 2 and every one after that exceeded the city manager's authority. And so included with the agenda report is a memo from Maria that talks about each of the different change orders and why they were necessary. And I also want to point out that after having identified this problem, we have instituted a revision to our procedures so that we can make sure that this type of situation doesn't happen again. And so with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Worley. Does council have any comments or questions of staff? Councilmember Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Worley, for this. I think we all understand that errors do happen, though, I guess in our normal lives, not quite to this dollar sign. The only question I have is the $100,000 reduction, change order 5. I'm curious about how reductions in contract price and estimated budget, how does that play into our approval process? And maybe Ms. Signal's represent answer, whatever that looks like, because it looks like you signed off on a $100,000 change. Is that if it was an increase, would you be authorized for that, or is it only because it's a decrease that you'd be authorized to approve that amount?
From the perspective that we had is that when we do a change order, we are obligating the city to spend more money. And you have given certain authorities to the city manager and to the public works director based on the administrative order about the purchasing provisions. And so by doing a deductive change order where we have a value engineering concept provided by the contractor, and that ends up saving us money, we feel like it is within the authorities that we have because it's not obligating the city anymore. It's actually de-obligating some of the money that was planned to originally be spent.
But I would just add that if it significantly changed the scope, that's something I think we'd be obligated to come back to council and talk about. But in this case, we got the same project, just a different way of doing it that saved us some dollars.
Great, thank you. I'd just encourage you to make sure that portion is also well documented, because I've certainly seen that come up in audits in my career, where it doesn't matter which change it went there. The auditors are looking for absolute value as opposed to a positive or negative on how it's going. So I have no issue with it. I just want to make sure I understood, and that's well documented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney. Any other questions or comments from council? If not, I would like to entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4054, authorizing the city manager to sign and execute a 6 change order to the construction contract with Apollo Inc. for the processed water reuse facility irrigation pump station project, and ratifying the approval of change order number 2, 3, and 4.
So there's a motion to approve resolution number 4054. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Councilmember Maloney. So all those in favor of this motion 4054 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we go to resolution and ordinance for a bid award for Grimmway Wastewater connection to Columbia East Lift Station and budget adjustment. Director Worley.
Good evening again, and this is another project-specific item, so I will turn it over to CIP Manager Maria Serra.
Good evening again, Mayor, council members. So this item relates to the bid award for Grimmway wastewater connection to Columbia East. And so we've been talking a lot about the Columbia East project and the pump station and the force main. This is one of the links that is needed so that that system can be operational. This project encompasses the redirection of the wastewater flows and the division between sanitary sewer and wastewater, industrial wastewater, so that those two flows can be separated and directed to their respective lift stations. It also includes some operational flexibility so that we can manage the flows that are sent to wastewater while we transition to our municipal wastewater, so that we can transition the discharge of Grimmway towards the reuse facility in an adequate manner as we perform improvements at that facility in order to host those flows permanently. With that, we prepared a set of plans and specifications, a bid packet that was advertised through the Small Works roster. We received 2 bids, and you have in your packet the bid calculations along with our engineer's estimate. We evaluated the bids. They were favorable. We had a lowest bidder, but we did notice some inconsistencies between our engineer's estimate and the first item in the second schedule, which was a unit value much higher than what we had anticipated. So we inquired our lowest bidder about that item and received some information that basically confirmed our concerns, and it was that some items that were in our bid packet divided into Schedule A and Schedule B were actually lumped and repeated in the one item of Schedule B. So we propose accepting the bids and moving forward with the award, understanding that we would be working with our contractor in a deductive change order so that we do not pay twice for the same items. And with that, I am happy to answer more questions on this.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. Council, any comments or questions? Additional, Mr. Councilmember Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you again, Ms. Sarah, for this presentation. When we're talking about the utility fund from which the, so half of this money is coming out of the economic development funding and half is coming out of a utility fund, which utility fund is this coming from? I ask because the ultimate beneficiary of this ends up being our sewer utility as opposed to necessarily the processed water reuse facility. So I couldn't see that information in the packet, so I was hoping you could add some clarity to that.
You want to take that one?
Yes, I can speak to that. Our Economic Development Fund, essentially, overall with municipal accounting, any fund that is more general, like a general fund, can give money freely to other funds. And Economic Development Fund is one of those funds that were specifically created to encourage economic activity within the city. And especially its revenue in the last 10 years, and I believe since its inception, has been mostly coming from the leases for the farm circles, where we discharge all of our processed water reuse facility reuse water to. So we've been collecting funds on that economic development fund over the years with anticipation of being able to provide and fund projects all across the city, but also to the the processors who use our PWRF facility, and also to be able to increase the capacity, anticipating new users as well. So in terms of the description of the fund, why it was created, and also a large and a significant fund balance that was created due to the lease from the farm circles, we are asking that we utilize some of the funds we utilize from the Economic Development Fund as well.
I guess where the heart of my question there was really, when we look at the beneficiary of this, what this ends up doing is it frees up capacity in our wastewater treatment plant, right? And allows us to defer future capacity increases by diverting this from going through our sanitary sewer into our industrial water reuse instead. So I guess what my question was is, fundamentally when we're looking at who's the beneficiary of this project, it looked to me a little bit like the beneficiary is actually our sewer fund and sewer utility instead. I don't have a specific issue with the Economic Development Fund being here. I understand the basis of where some of that money comes from and how that all ties together. This certainly, bringing another user into the process of our reuse facilities is definitely a positive. I would just encourage that we think that when appropriate, we think about how the long-term beneficiary of what we're doing, and see if there might be more appropriate, maybe not in this case, but in certain other cases, to use the funding appropriately. So, anyways, appreciate the additional context on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney. Councilmember Serrano.
Thank you. This question is more for Mr. Briggs, and it's kind of a two-piecer or two questions. One, is there any risk with awarding a bid intending to immediately provide a deductive change order? If it significantly changes the scope, could the bid itself be found non-compliant, or do we need to consider rebidding this? And then the second question is, I see no comment, and maybe I didn't read it super closely, in the resolution itself, anything that addresses that deductive change order. Do we need to be aware and include that language in the resolution itself to make that somehow legally binding on the bidder?
I don't know if Mr. Briggs is on.
Yeah, I'm still on.
Okay.
And with regard to the change order, I think it's really just one about, essentially something that was or was not anticipated at the time that we received the bid. With regard to the language, I think at this point, the circumstances may have changed that have caused the need for us to adjust, the scope of work, which I think. That's one thing, and that I don't see a legal problem with that. The language in the resolution, I think specificity is always, the best thing. But I don't know that that's going to defeat the effectiveness of our resolution as currently written. But it would be nice to see that language there.
And Councilmember Serrano, if I could add to that, I have seen over the years in my experience where this has been done in the past as well, where for whatever reason the bid is a little higher than what was anticipated for various different reasons, and moving forward with the award was the best approach, and then negotiating a deductive change order is well within the legal rights of this kind of award in contracting, especially given the fact that we are dealing with the low bidder, and the deduction doesn't affect the change of who the low bidder is. And so I've seen it done before. I'm not an attorney, and we felt like it was necessary to actually get under contract in order to start those negotiations. So we thought moving forward with the award was the right way to do it, and then work with the contractor afterwards.
Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm just a little concerned, simply for the fact I recognize that we are awarding to the low bidder as required by statute and is beneficial to the public. I just always have a little hesitation to say we're going to award a contract and immediately seek to amend it, requesting a deductive amount, regardless of whether it's a change in scope or, in this case, kind of cleaning up where we've had duplicative efforts. I'm not going to hold up the process. I'm just expressing concern here that we're going to bid this and immediately seek deductive change order. I don't know if C&E has competent counsel or how difficult that might be. I'll just leave it at that.
One other approach that we can work with legal on is to go ahead with the award, and then as we move forward with getting the contractor under contract, we might be able to initiate that change order prior to the execution of the contract, provided that it's less than what was awarded by council.
Yeah, I think that to me would be the safest approach, and I don't know if we would need to throw in some additional language into the language. Again, I don't know if we want to condition it on that deductive change order occurring. I don't know if we just simply want to state in the now therefore clause, the city staff recommends award of the contract to C&E in the amount of $330,179.30 or less, or even saying less the change order amount, which I'm not a math guy. Maybe Maloney's already done that in his head twice over. I don't know, but I hate to change these things on the fly, but I think it's very important that we're aware of what our bullseye is here. So we've got a motion on the floor already to. Oh no, we don't have a motion.
We don't have a motion at this time.
So
Once we, excuse me, Councilmember Serrano, what we could do is, if you feel comfortable, if there's no other comments from the council, if you would like to make that motion and word it as best you can, and then, and Mr. Briggs, if you could just take light to the way he reads the motion, so that we can move forward, and then we can document it from our clerk and document it the way it's going to be read by Mr. Serrano. Would that be the better route to go, Mr. Briggs?
Yeah, I think that would be fine, and we'll just maybe add in there, the specific. If I can pull it up here, the specific reason or reasoning why we're asking council to authorize this specific change order.
I think it was a duplication of items within that bid item in Schedule B.
Right, so I think we could incorporate that specific language into the resolution.
Getting that?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I think we have to be a little bit careful in that we do have formal bids that were received that have numbers associated with them. So that I think the award has to be for the amount. We can certainly condition the award on execution of a deductive change order for any duplicative bid items.
Right.
Hey,
Would that be a good way to word it?
I think that would be appropriate.
City Manager Dave?
I'm going to recommend we pull this and bring it back next week.
Oh, that's probably the safest thing to do. What do you think?
Yeah,
Councilmember Serrano?
I'd say unless we're under the gun to complete this, we can always, notice a special meeting if necessary to do it next week. At that point, it'll be clean. It should be less than 5 minutes of conversation at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, there's time. It was, the bid opening was just, I think on April 1st, so there's plenty of time.
Yeah, I'd say if we can work this, and, you know, I'd hate to have to go back fully to the table with all bidders if we have to. Whatever's most protective of the city, both of the funds and from a legal standpoint is kind of where I'd like to see this. Thank you.
Okay, then if council is amenable to that, we would eliminate this from going to a vote this evening and putting it on the agenda on the next meeting. So thank you for that. Appreciate that, Councilmember Serrano. I think it's the safest thing to do. All right, with that, that was the last item on our agenda. We will now go to item 10, unfinished business. City Manager Dave Zabel, or Mr. Adam Lincoln. Well, go ahead, Mr. Zabel.
Yes, I did have a couple miscellaneous comments I want to bring up. You know, first I kind of want to comment a little bit on the number of public works items that you saw tonight, and hopefully, I know there was a few hiccups along the way, particularly the last one, but it really demonstrates in my mind how well Public Works Engineering staff's doing, our CIP staff, in dealing with a lot of these projects, the dynamic nature of them, and their ability to adapt to those changes as they come along. They've been pushing hard on a lot of these projects, trying to execute council's agenda. We've had things like $3 million, extra $1 million show up and surprise us and have to change basically the scope of the project, almost start from scratch and still try to stay on schedule. And I appreciate council's patience as we kind of work through all those tonight. And I wanted to, say a few good things about staff, because I think they're doing a great job with this. And then, to the point earlier, Paul Hoover's report, there's obviously a lot of things currently happening from a funding standpoint. We have $18.4 million to talk about here in the very near future. And then there's, one of the reasons I wanted Paul to have the discussion tonight is to talk about the earmark process, and then some of the other opportunities to Councilor Maloney's standpoint, or to his comments. We're gonna have to think strategically. In the case of the earmarks, we had a bit of a time frame, so it was pretty easy. Council's already done some planning on those kind of near-term projects, and we're in a position where we're able to bring forward, as Mr. Lincoln mentioned tonight, a handful of those, and be sitting in pretty good shape with, I think, some pretty compelling arguments and already some built-in community support. So I think that pre-planning, strategic thinking that council's been doing is paying off, and depending on what happens with between the Senate and House and President on the budget issues that are coming up, and the infrastructure packages and so forth, looks like there's going to be other opportunities. I did want to mention, too, that there are other things out there, and we are planning on putting together a bit of a workshop for council. I'd mentioned last week, and we'll start to set up the discussion on that. We are on some deadlines on those applications this week, but a couple items I wanted to kind of share with you. And one of the reasons we're doing it is so that you're kind of aware of all that's going on out there. Because I think with the $18.4 million sounds like a ton of money, but I think we want to be careful not to duplicate what other opportunities might already be out there. So two of them that are out there now that Reach has been plugging me to mention the last couple of weeks. And one, the Tri-Cities Home Consortium, which basically is Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland, received $700,000 in block grant money. That's been allocated to Benton Franklin CAC for emergency short-term tenant-based rental assistance program for qualified families living in Kennewick, Pasco, or Richland who are experiencing hardship due to the pandemic with rent and with utility assistance. So that's one opportunity for folks out now there that may need that assistance. And then another is through Benton County Department of Human Services, which that is a partnership with Benton and Franklin. I mean, it goes under the banner of Benton County Department of Human Services, but it serves both Franklin and Benton counties. There's a $5 million program out there for basically a similar need. And it's available to any resident in Benton or Franklin County. So it's not limited to the cities, but also rental and utility assistance. So wanted to get that out there. Both those programs, you can get to them from the city's website. And there's links that'll take you right to the applications and so forth. And certainly you can get them on, get to those on the CAC website or Benton Department of Human Services website as well. So just wanted to share that information to you and any of the public that may be listening and know somebody that, or may be in need themselves of that assistance. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, City Manager Zabel. Councilmember Serrano.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Dave just said about the Public Works. I know you all are extremely busy and bidding a lot of projects. So, Mr. Worley, Ms. Sarah, please do not take any of this discussion as a negative view of your programs. I really appreciate what you're doing. You know, simply put, we're up here to ensure that we've protected all the funds, and sometimes as an attorney, I get in my own way. And in this case, unfortunately, in the city's way. Unfortunately, we don't have a pressing deadline. So again, I really appreciate everything you're doing, and please do not take that as any undue criticism. If you feel that way, please reach out to me via email, and then we can follow up on the phone and chat. I'm happy to do so, but please do not take that as a negative view of your programs. So thank you for your work, as well as the rest of city staff. But I didn't come down on anyone else, so no kudos for you.
Thank you, Councilmember Serrano. Anybody else?
This is Councilmember Alvarado.
Yes, Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to put a little plug in for this upcoming event. Granted, hopefully that we do not go backwards in our ability to have gatherings and things of that nature. But I was outreached by by Ms. Chervella from the Juneteenth Council, and just wanted to put this on council's ear, just that they will not be moving forward with a parade this year, but they do want to have an event in Kurtzman Park, and I connected her with city staff to just kind of work out some perhaps in-kind kind of help that they can receive, perhaps from support from the city of some sort, as whatever's legally available. But also, I did want to just bring it to council's attention, just from a perspective of if we have the ability to be there, present, and show our support. I'm sure they'll also be excited about any financial support as well, and perhaps more on a personal level. But yeah, they're wanting to have an event, and hopefully it's successful, and we just want to show our support for the Juneteenth. We have a long history of doing this event, and just looking forward to a great event.
Thank you, Councilmember Alvarado. If there's no one else, and I appreciate your comments, Councilmember Alvarado. And I know it's a little early, but at the end of May, we got Memorial Day coming on. I know at least Councilmember Serrano has already been pegged for helping out at an event. And what I want to share is I actually went and got my second dose of the vaccine over at the fairgrounds. And I want to give a shout out to Chief Gear and Ben Shearer for the awesome work that's being done over there. Again, I know we've mentioned it many times, but the National Guard and everybody, all the volunteers, it was a quick, less than 15-minute process. And I just want to encourage everybody to please, the numbers are sporadic right now and don't know which way they're going to go as far as the positive cases. Let's not let our guard down. Let's just try to remain safe and do the right thing by just protecting ourselves as much as we can when we can, and ensure that I want to be optimistic and hope that by the 4th of July that we can just celebrate in a way that makes up for all the last year if we could. But again, I just want to encourage everybody and also give a shout out to all those that are helping at the Benton County Fairgrounds and for all the work they're doing there. It was a great experience. And now that, as we mentioned last week, everybody over the age of 16 that are now eligible to go get vaccinated. You know, I would encourage you, if you choose to do that, to please go to the website and get an appointment and get that done if you can. So thank you for that. Let's see. Well, that's all I had is, we got Council, Mayor Pro Tem Barajas.
One last comment, just a quick shout out. Not sure if Chief Roski is on the line. If he's not, then City Manager, not sure if you heard about this. Mayor, not sure if you heard about this. Our Pasco Police Department. You're on the line. So if you want to share a little bit more detail. I attended one of the first Pasco Police Department Citizens Academy that is being held in person. It's a very small group. Yes, I'm a returning student. But every time I've come to these academy, I hear something different, something new. And one thing that made me very, very proud of our police department is the presentation held by our dispatcher, CCOM. They talked about how Pasco Police Department's response time was the best, within 1 to 3 minutes response time. Chief, if you want to talk a little bit more about what they were mentioning.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't have the actual numbers in front of us and we're pulling those, but yeah, we're proud of the commitment that we make to our priority 1 and 2 calls. And just to be, make sure we're addressing that. Those are those in progress calls that we're responding to. We certainly have a slower response time to not in progress, but we take public safety and the priority of getting to those priority 1 and 2 calls as quickly as we can. So thank you for the comments and I appreciate the support for our Citizens Academy.
So just wanted to again reiterate, City of Pasco in comparison to our cities in the Tri-Cities has one of the best response times when it comes to those calls. So we are getting to our community and helping them out as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Barajas. And one more announcement. Many of you already know, but with the exception of about 2,000 who've chose to have their kids stay at home for their education, schools reopened back up today, as a matter of fact. And so I just want to make sure everybody is driving safe out there. I think it's obvious that the traffic in certain times of the day are getting back to being very, very busy. Our staff, I know I've been in communication with Mr. Worley, Mr. Radkai about where we're at with our streets, our landscaping, and all the work that our staff is doing. Appreciate all the help that we're getting, and they're working very diligently to get all that done. But more importantly, just keep your eye out for the children on school zones. Please drive the speed limit, drive safe, and let's take care of our children and share the excitement of them going back to school with the precautions that is necessary. So with that, we've kind of covered a miscellaneous discussion. Do we have a need for an executive session tonight?
Not this evening.
Thank you very much. So with that, thank you very much for coming. It is 8:43. This meeting is now adjourned.